everyone. My name is Sean Millerick, and welcome to Marlins After Dark, because, of course, no team keeps you up late at night like the Miami Marlins, especially when they're on the freaking West Coast, these Seattle games. And we almost went to extras, but huge catch by Jesus Sanchez. Easily the best defensive play I've ever seen him make there to save a grand slam there at the end and preserve this 4-1 Marlins victory. Joined tonight by Jeremiah Geiger of Marlins 9 and Presley Walker of a To Be Revealed up-and-coming Marlins podcast. So we'll break down tonight's win and get into some other things going on with the Fish right now over the past week. Gentlemen, how are you doing? And thoughts on tonight's outcome?
Blood pressure is high.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying the blood pressure is high.
Still racing, right?
No, it's I'm just ready to get the hell out of Seattle for the Marlins. That was such a miserable first two games. And it was about to be a really bad third game, if not for Jesus. So salvage the last game of the series, get out, go to Washington, take a win, but I'm ready for the West Coast part to be over.
I like the hours of them. I was joking with Peter Pratt, who, Marlins UK is cursing, these West Coast games. It's very different, very not UK friendly when that's going down. But, for me in the central time zone, my kids are asleep. I could, cook dinner, make a drink, get a nice snack, going, settle in to watch the first pitch. Usually I race, putting the kids down to sleep, and then racing to maybe see the ninth inning. Usually not with these new pitch clock rules. So it's but yeah, right around the seventh inning, I start regretting my optimism. So it'd be nice to see him get back at East, or at least in the Central Time Zone again. But yeah, regular start times with the Nats and a much easier opponent with the Nationals. The Mariners are better than their record reflects. Got off to a slow start, and we saw that this series. The Nationals, they are what their record says. And it'd be nice to get back to one more punching bag before getting back into the meatier part of the schedule. But the big poor story from tonight, couple, but headlined by Eury Perez, who actually completed 6 innings. On their 6 innings pitched for Eury tonight, 0 earned runs, 6 strikeouts, 2 hits, 1 walk. Best start of his career, certainly the longest. What was your reaction? Presser, will go to you first. Did you think there was any chance that he was pitching to 6 until he showed up? And did you think there was any chance that he was going to finish that inning until he got the last out?
After he got 5, I was pretty confident. And then the way the bullpen was moving, figured probably was going to let him go until he gave up a base runner. And did not look like he was going to give up a base runner, obviously. They're good. I think, was that the most strikeouts we've seen him have this season, or did he have a 7 strikeout game?
7 strikeouts sounds familiar, but let me look that up.
Overall, you have a 20-year-old going against Luis Castillo, who's obviously established himself as a big league pitcher, and to see him absolutely outclass Luis Castillo, especially when Castillo looked as bad as he did, is very impressive for any 20-year-old, like any pitcher in general, but for a 20-year-old who's, being in the conversation of getting optioned, kind of feel like he shut that down tonight, hopefully. I don't know why you'd send him down at this point.
Yeah, we'll get into that, certainly. With the strikeouts, 7 strikeouts in his first game. That's why it sounded familiar. He didn't make it out of the 5th, but he did strike out 7 in that first game against the Reds. Jeremiah, were you as surprised as I was, or?
So actually, right before the
equally
6th
optimistic
inning, I was on Twitter and I saw your tweet, Sean. It was the poll, no chance in hell or when pigs can fly. I think I voted no chance in hell, and then I immediately commented, well, I guess not. So I was surprised, but I was really excited to see the faith that Skip put in Eury to go out there. His pitch count was around high 70s, I think, at the time, through 5. So he had a little bit of room to work with, and goes 1, 2, 3 in the 6th, finishes 93 pitches. So it's right on track with what the Marlins want to do with him as an organization in terms of pitch count. But to be able to go 6 innings pitched, like, we keep hearing the rumors, are they going to send him down? Was that his last start? And there's been so much speculation. I don't see how you can justify sending down Eury Perez right now. He's been so damn good to start his career. It's just incredible. I want to keep seeing him pitch. I don't see how you can justify sending him down in the sense that you're competitive, right? If the Marlins were 29-37, it's a different story. But you're 38-30, you're in the wild card race. Keep him up. Keep him up there.
Yeah, he's definitely making that decision harder and harder. I'll admit that it's the part of me that just, takes pretty much every mistreat as gospel on there, and, trust and just sees all of the caution they've taken with him to this point. A little part of me is worried that, well, let's let him finish the sixth, let him throw those, a few extra bullets. And I guess it ended up being about right in line of what he was doing. But, that extra little bit of leverage time, that maybe that is the kind of thing that you do to a kid that you are about to, send down or pump the brakes on, or, put him on ice for a little bit until those theoretically more consequential games in August or September. To me, a win's a win in the win-loss column, and let's just keep getting them now. But it's definitely huge for them to come out and get that win tonight to avoid the sweep in this series. And again, you lose a series to a good Mariners team that was into playoffs last year in Seattle in the middle of a long road trip. Like, that's the kind of thing you could explain away. But a sweep, that stings. That sucks a lot of the momentum. That brings all those questions about, are the Marlins good, or were they just kicking the crap out of the A's and the Royals? And well, they were just kicking the crap out of the A's and the Royals, but they could also be good. Both of those things can be true. We'd be wondering if it was a little more of a extreme case if it wasn't for that outcome. So definitely glad to see him do that tonight, and definitely glad to see the Marlins get one victory there, and for moving on to hopefully greener pastures after the off day. Had one question about the off day before we get into more Eury talk about what they're going to do with him. There Luis Arias, who did not have a hit in this series, which just seems unfathomable to say. And I think I'm not worried about his performance in the season. He's still, he could not have a hit in the next two series and still be leading Major League Baseball on average. But do you expect to see him start Friday? Skip seems to have been a big fan of kind of the double off day when possible this season, and just after it's kind of an 0 stretch. Do you think one day is enough for him to reset? I mean, he still got a bunch of a couple walks, just getting on base, had some good swings that just didn't seem to go his way. But do you think it's a perfectly timed off day and he'll be starting on Friday, or do you expect to maybe not see him play again until Saturday? Jeremiah, I'll start with you.
So I personally don't expect to see him start Friday, just based off what I would do personally. I think tomorrow obviously is an off day. Everybody gets some rest. Everybody, is healing up. It was a long road trip, still in the road trip, but you're going back to the East Coast. But when it comes to Friday night, to be able to give him that mental break, Luis Arias is such a thinker at the plate. He's not a hacker. He knows he goes up there with a plan, and he knows exactly where he wants to hit the baseball. And right now the hits weren't falling. I think he's 0 for his last 11 or 12 by the end of tonight. So, it's not a bad idea just to give him a day off, let him relax, chill with his teammates in the dugout, cheer on his team. You're playing the Nationals. You have Sandy on the mound. I expect to win that game. And have him throw him back in there Saturday with a clear, level head and just ready to rock.
No, I like it. That's the move I hope they make. Presley, what do you think? Is Luis starting against the Nationals on Friday, or are they going to give him the twofer?
So if you would have asked me in the 8th inning, I would have told you he's starting on Friday. But then he goes out, he makes the 2 errors, didn't look great. You could tell it was, like he said, all in his head. And that's obviously not what you want from a guy who's hitting up there in high 300s, because he's not up there relying on raw power. He's up there relying on, what pitch is he going to throw here? What, if you're in your head, you're showing it on defense, you probably just need take the break. Like you said, Sandy's on the mound. Sandy's notoriously very good against the Nationals. So give him the off day, try to go pull out the win. If he's needed off the bench, pull him off the bench. But probably should give him the day off after the 2 errors in the ninth.
I think that's a very good point with the ninth inning. Yeah, that's on the ledger too. It's not just the hitless series, but some pretty big, potentially huge blunders there in the ninth inning. Definitely gave Puck AJ much more of a workout than he was expecting. I think after getting that first out. So yeah, I'd be shocked if we see Arias on Friday, but I'd also still be shocked if he doesn't finish the season leading baseball in batting average. But let's just get him right because they need him for the stretch. And speaking of the stretch, so as both of you have noted, we've heard all season, or not, or at least ever since Eury first came up against the Reds back on May 12th, that it's only a matter of time before he goes back down, that he's just was kind of expected to hold a place for one of Miami's returning starters, be that Trevor Rogers or Johnny Cueto. And he's been Miami's best starting pitcher by a lot, since that point in time. It hasn't been racking up quality starts or complete games, but who cares? He's been dominant. String in clean today. He's given up 1 run in his last 4 starts. Now they just went into the 6th inning for the first time today. Cueto's not back yet. Looks like we're going to go longer, without Trevor. That news broke this week, and I think that was probably definitely going to change the thinking there of the plans. But Eury's also changing the thinking of the plans. You keep waiting for him to blink, to have a rookie moment. Blink to go out there and have the Braxton Garrett game against the Braves, and show that, the kid's not ready, needs to work on some things. Give him some cover for that decision, and he hasn't been doing that. We haven't seen that happen yet. And so let's see, how do we all want to go about this? Do you think he goes down? Do you think he's still with the Marlins by the All-Star break? Yes or no?
I say yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think he pitches more than 100 innings? Yes or no?
I think you're approaching not 100, but I don't think he gets there in the regular season. I think he's gonna. My guess is in the 70s, because what's he at right now? About 35?
He's at
31?
34 maybe.
See,
because
so
I have
he's
the stats pulled up.
35 in the majors,
35.
and he had how many did he have in the minors prior?
He had, let me check. I got the numbers pulled up here. If I can. That's just the major numbers. The thing is like, in my mind, I want to keep him as healthy as possible for the playoffs, right? He pitched 31 innings in the minors so far in Double-A. So we're looking at about 70 innings total.
Yeah, I think I just ran a 66, and he did 70, and he was into 70s last year. His career high is 78 innings pitched.
And if you look at like 100 major league innings in total, that's another, that's close to, we're pushing 200 innings at that point. I think that's too much, because my concern with Eury is the big thing is injury, right? I've seen top prospects go down. I still have PTSD from Jose Fernandez with Tommy John, and Jake Eder had Tommy John, Max Meyer, Tommy John. I really want to avoid that, and the organization wants to avoid that at all costs. So I'm all for protecting him. I just don't think right now is the time to send him down.
But so when you say that you think some of that will occur in the postseason, so do you think they're going to do that at some point, like pause him and try to still get a few starts out of him in September, or
So what I
October,
was
or do you think they're just going to run out the clock on him, and then by then Rogers will be back or Cueto will be back?
what I was really thinking, and this is something because it's a hard question, and I was thinking about it a lot, is at the deadline we hear all this talk about offense and adding another stick or two. Well, what if you go out and add an innings eater, a veteran starter who's not cheap, who is cheap, who's a rental, and who can give you those starts in August? And why not Perez goes down back to the minors, shut him down even if you need to for 2, 3, 4 starts, let him rest, and that innings eater that you acquire at the deadline steps in. Because right now, Trevor, it looks like he has a setback in his rehab. I don't think anyone really knows what's going on with that. Johnny Cueto, I mean, he's pitched 1 inning all season. Is he someone you rely on down the stretch? I don't
I
think
would
you
think the
do.
Marlins are hoping that at least the front office is hoping that that's your answer. We have this innings eater. We're paying him $8 million.
Right. But like, let's say he comes back up and he's just getting shelled, as an ineffective starter. That's a big what if. We don't know yet. Could the Marlins go for someone like an Eduardo Rodriguez on the Tigers, who, yes, he has close to $50 million on his contract, but he has an opt out, right? And he's pitching well. He's going to opt out of that contract.
He's
It's
too
unlikely,
expensive.
but it's a scenario.
That's
Presley,
going to be a
what do you
target
think?
for more like the Cardinals. I
Well, don't say that. I want the Cardinals to sell, but yeah, I
they're
think
not going to sell.
they're not. They're not.
Oh, they're
So
going to
I
sell.
think maybe. I think the most logical thing to do was originally like Rogers, and then leave Eury in the majors and let him piggyback off Rogers. You got 2 very different looks there. It's very good strategically, and effective, and you get to lower the innings rate there. But now, I mean, I don't see why you couldn't do it the other way around, where you go like, especially with Eury pitching like he is right now, you get Rogers back and then let him build back by feeding off of Eury, and then switch him out to cut Eury's innings down. And then you also got to remember that we're expected to get Max Meyer back at some point this year. Whether
No,
what
that's going to be next year.
No,
I thought he was expected back in September. He went down early July last year.
Oh, I
Or
mean, I
late
think
June.
it usually takes a good year and a half, especially with an injury that late in the summer.
I've always seen like 14 months.
that would be
But I mean,
great if
think
that
about,
was possible. But
like, even if
yeah.
he does come back healthy enough to throw, he still has to get his breaking balls right, rehab in the minors. Like, I don't think you'll see him till spring training.
Either way, you also expect your other pitchers to start throwing innings at some point too, which that's a big point, is that like the starters aren't going any distance. I think who else has gone 7 innings over the last month and a half? Like you can probably pull 3 or 4 examples, but like not enough for starting pitching staff that's supposed to be what it is. I don't know if I like the idea of sending Eury down at all, unless obviously eventually he could have a blip. But like you see what the Mariners are doing with Bryce Miller right now. He's eating innings, and he's very similar situation to Eury. When you're talking about velo, arm problems, the only difference is Miller went more innings in the minors building up. It just kind of play it by ear would be my idea, just because it kind of would kill a lot of the momentum if you send him down, especially right now. Like if Rogers was good in a week, it would be stupid to send Eury down, especially whenever he threw the way he did tonight.
And that's where I'm at as well. I think of another young pitcher from this season, and it's a much different talent level between the two. Let me stress that first. But Taj Bradley with the Rays, they got off to a fantastic start, and then Tampa, sent him down to manage his innings, probably play a little bit of service time games there as well. Said he had to work on some stuff, and maybe he did. It's been rough since he came back up, but it's been a lot of speculation that got in his head after being dominant for his first 4 or 5 starts in the majors, and then being told that it's not quite right. We're going to send you down for these suspicious reasons, and even if the Marlins would have, it wouldn't be a case of that. It would be this seemingly cunning plan to save those bullets for later. Just these guys don't like being demoted. They like to compete now, especially if they haven't done anything on the field to warrant it. If he gets knocked around for a couple starts, then sure, maybe he could accept the fact that he's got to work on getting the grip on that change up without the tack on it, or something like that, and he could figure it out or chip away. But Eury is completely free of any blame for doing anything wrong. At this point, he struck out Shohei and Mike Trout a couple of weeks ago, and he's looking just fine. And I think it's just a case of you can figure out this problem of those bullets for those stretch run games or playoff games when you get there. Let's just get there for this one. Let's have that winning season. Let's be in a position to have to worry about that. And his next start, I think it would come. Who do they got after the Blue Jays? After this, it's that game counts just as much in the standings as some game against the Braves. Well, in September, just let him do whatever amount of innings he's going to do every 5 to 6 days. Here at the major league level, I think 6-man rotation would be a good move for something for them to consider. But that's the most creative thing I would do personally. But be interesting to see. Like you said, of every start he makes, it comes back to, is this it? Is this the moment? Are they going to send him down? And looks like we've got at least a couple of weeks break with that, from however long it takes to heal a non-throwing shoulder. But we'll find out.
Meyer got hurt significantly later in the season than I thought he did. So
I was going to say,
he is already thrown from 135 feet though, but like y'all said, it's not. I don't know.
It's more feet
had
than
me a little
6,
excited there for a moment, but we might see 6 though.
I'm hoping. I mean, he probably wouldn't get back to starter. There is, I guess, a chance that he could come back and be like a very light reliever towards the end of the year, but that's probably not starting.
Is Sixto throwing 75 feet still? That's the real question.
Oh, everybody drinking.
Has he
Sixto throws 75 feet. That's a shot. Okay. Could be a shot of coffee for those of you who are listening to this in the morning, but drink something. You got your Sixto health update. Okay. All right, moving on to next topic. First, just wanted to I'll promote a couple of things. They're just out there in the Marlins Twitter space. First, I guess we can start with a moment of silence for, every other active South Florida sports team. There is the Marlins take the baton after defeats for the hard-fought seasons by the Miami Heat and the Florida Panthers. I know I have a Vegas Golden Knights fan in the room, but congratulations to you, Sir Jeremiah. But best of luck to them in the next season. But for Marlins content out there, you could certainly catch Jeremiah anytime for Marlins 9 podcast. I think you just recorded one of those on Sunday, right?
Yeah, I recorded one with Ryan Schlesinger. Good kid, good future broadcaster.
Oh, I think he'll be running a news network at the very
for sure.
At the very least. And so also be sure to follow the Fish on First guys on their news site. There, I've got if you have an IBWA membership on there, I have a piece coming out in Here's the Pitch tomorrow morning, and you can of course follow Marlins After Dark and find me on Twitter at Miami Sports Minute. And Presley, I know you have a show upcoming to be revealed. Anything you must say on that to drum up
it's going to be called Fish Out of Water. It's a Marlins podcast.
Fish Out of Water. All right.
Yeah.
I like it.
I'm gonna keep the co-host secret for now, but we do plan on having the first episode out on Thursday, hopefully, as long as everything goes right. We're just gonna be bringing in like different Marlins fans, different fan base fans, more of a fan perspective on what's going on with the team. It's less about stats and more about just being a fan. Definitely going to be open to absolutely roasting this team like we're used to in the past. So as long as they keep playing like they are now, hopefully we don't have to do that much this year. But yeah, it's gonna be good. It should be coming out like at the end of every series. I can't promise a
Okay.
schedule. However, that's the plan, is like review the last series, preview the next series.
No, I know how it is with schedules. I think you've got a player to be named later running around as well. With their sometimes it's hard with little ones underfoot and work, but yeah, we certainly look forward to that. So fish out of water. I love the title, and so
I can't believe that
to
wasn't taken yet.
follow that as well. I'm a little
I like the
surprised
name.
myself.
Yeah, I had to go look and make sure, but all of them, there were like 2, and they were both fishing podcasts. I was like, yeah.
Well, when you say you're gonna roast the team, like me and Sean have roasted this team on our podcast for the last year. So it's actually good to like not roast and actually be happy for once.
Yeah, no,
I think I've cast very few stones this year, and like I said, anything about Jesus Sanchez's defense, I'm going to keep it in the holster for at least a week.
You have to. You have
after
to
tonight. With their previous series, I was thinking had some thoughts, but okay. The next up for the trade deadline. Just wanted to, rather than getting into a bunch of specific names and rumors, if you want to hear an extensive breakdown of names and rumors, I would definitely recommend checking out the recent spaces that the Fish on First guys did. I think they broke their record for runtime for one of those Sunday night Twitter spaces, and that got all into trade rumors. But for you two, I would just ask, what are you expecting this trade deadline in terms of a splash or a ripple? Something we kind of kicked around the other night, and I've kind of noticed over the last few weeks, is there doesn't really seem to be that big superstar name that's going to be, a part of this. So I'm actually starting to believe that the Angels are just going to hold on to Ohtani for the whole time, and that would be like the only blockbuster name. I don't know if any superstars are getting dealt, this trade deadline, but could be wrong. Tell me if I am. Do you see the Marlins making some kind of like big splash? So splash should be an all-star, active all-star prime caliber player is acquired to boost all his chips to the middle of the table. The Marlins are about the same amount of games over 500 they are come mid-July. Or do you think it's going to be a bunch of little moves, but tiny transactions, getting an extra reliever here, maybe someone like Ian Gomes or a serviceable catcher but not Salvador Perez. We heard earlier this week, a third baseman that's competent, which just needs to be better than Gene Segura, and it'll be an upgrade, like that kind of those kind of moves. Or do you think there'll be a big headline grabbing acquisition? So Presley, we'll start with you. Splash or ripples at the trade deadline?
So I'm gonna say ripples. And I think that's the right move. I don't think you trade whatever they've been doing a pretty decent job building this team. Like, we're finally getting to see the results from Sanchez and De La Cruz, and I don't feel the need to salvage all that for a year where you're not supposed to be here. And that's a mistake a lot of teams make. Like, I follow the whole MLB. Like, I am a Marlins fan, but I follow every team, and you see it every year. It's a team salvaging their entire future for one guy, and then 98% of the time it doesn't go anywhere. So I think the right move would be filling your holes with good players. Like, if they went out and got a Yan Gomes, obviously that's going to be an upgrade over Jacob Stallings. A name I like, and a lot of Marlins fans like, JD Davis, would be a pretty good pickup for third base, especially the way Gene's playing, and I guess there is a chance he is hurt. I don't really know if we heard any information on why he got pulled, but on the radio they were saying that he came out during warm-ups towards the end, and then after the sac fly got pulled from the game. So I don't know what the news on it I mean, honestly, that would help the Marlins. I hate to say that, but if he was hurt. But yeah, like JD Davis, there's a few other names, like Elias Diaz would be another. That would be almost a splash because he's kind of underrated, but he is a very good player. He could be a long-term option for the Marlins. Yeah, it just depends on like. I don't think there's any major like $30 million player to go after, like you were saying. But definitely not for the Marlins. Like I don't think there's any aspirations for even a $20 million player.
Okay. Jeremiah, splash or ripples? That you think
It's
will
gonna
happen.
be
That's what you want.
ripples. I mean, it's gonna be either a 1 ripple, 2 ripples, 3 ripples. It's not gonna be the splash. There's not gonna be a Juan Soto, Shohei Ohtani type trade in any sense for the Marlins. It's just not how the organization runs, you know. And that's okay. I don't think the Marlins need that. Like Presley said, DLC has played himself into the All-Star conversation. Jorge Soler, Revenge Tour 2023, second in the majors and home runs. Like they're having guys step up that allow this team to make smart moves that don't break the bank or drown the farm system. Looking at the names, Jock Peterson, is that a guy? If the Giants continue, like now the Giants are actually in contention right now, but we still got about a month and a half to the deadline. But he's a guy that I think would be a great fit for the Marlins. He could play the outfield. He could DH. I was talking on an Angels podcast a couple weeks back, previewing the Angels Marlins series, and their fans, a lot of them are divided with Ohtani, whether to trade him or not. And I was just commenting on the post, on Twitter, and Taylor Ward is a guy that was mentioned. One of the Angel fans said, would you trade Taylor Ward or would you trade Edward Cabrera for Taylor Ward? And I looked a little more into him, kind of struggling this season, but he's another young, controllable outfielder, because I don't think the Marlins go all out on a rental. And that's what Presley was kind of touching on, is you don't sell, you don't sell everything right now and mortgage your future just to try to win when you're not even supposed to. If the Marlins were, a 45 win team, if they're like the Tampa Bay Rays with blue chip talent all over, yeah, go ahead, but you're not the Yankees. The Marlins pride themselves on being a gritty team, and I expect them to make a move, and I think they have to make a move, but I don't think it's going to be a crazy scenario. That's just my opinion.
And I'm inclined to agree. If you see like a big move for like that active all-star prime level player, I think it would be, as you said, for a controllable player. Like if you're talking about moving a starting pitcher, which is just feels dicey now, even with injuries they've had. I'm okay. So dealing anyone at least on the major league roster, if you've played a major league inning for the Marlins this year, the possible exception of Johnny Cueto, I pretty much don't want the Marlins to consider trading that player going into this deadline. But the farm system, I'm much more flexible on picking and choosing from that. And I wonder if the Marlins would view even just making the playoffs, for this franchise. Let's just forget 2020, for this conversation. The Marlins having that winning season and making the playoffs, if that's worth the same to them as Tampa Bay adding a superstar for a team that's clearly of World Series caliber, just in terms of PR appeal, kind of showing the South Florida fan base, we're trying. You should come to our games. You should buy season tickets for 2024 because we did this thing on there. So I'm curious to see once if things are real at the trade deadline, how Bruce reacts to that. I think up to this whole point in time, this whole ownership's been pretty careful for the most part of not doing the Jeffrey Loria move. At any point, all the trades have been pretty smart, pretty reasonable. If you look back on, and so I'm curious to see what happens, what Sherman does in a live fire situation where he's got a competitive team that could, really, actually get there, to get to the postseason, even if we don't expect them to do much, once they actually start, dancing in those series. But my expectation is for them to make the smarter moves. We're actually going to see one of the players I would love for them to go after this weekend, Heiber Candelaria. He's cooled off a little bit, but I think subbing in that kind of player at third base along with a Yan Gomes would be huge. Maybe getting another reliever as well. Like if you did those three things, I think it would be a massive win at the deadline for the Marlins. I think two of those three things, would be, still a pretty successful one. There it is, just making the day-to-day lineup, that much deeper, that much more, successful. So that's what I think would happen as well. For it to be a splash, that would take a surprise seller. We joked about the Cardinals, not selling, and it's not in their DNA, but I think it would take something like that. A team that is good and was supposed to compete this season, that one of the teams that has fallen on hard times, maybe the Giants really fall out of it, maybe the Cardinals keep sucking, and they throw up their hands. Like if that pool of players becomes available, then maybe you see a splash. Otherwise, little moves, stones in the pond.
I do have one rental that I'm sure all Marlins fans would be like someone happy with, but it would have to be at a minimal price. Like I don't know how cheap he's going to be. I wouldn't mind seeing Adam Duvall come back for the Red Sox. He's on a 1-year deal. They would have to maneuver it around and play it the right way, but he would be one of the bats that I'd be okay with them bringing back. But like I said, it'd have to be something minimal, like very minimal.
And I think they'd be open to 1-year rentals if you're not talking about like a top 5 prospect that you have to deal to acquire them. Duvall, they could probably get for. I don't even know if they would need to trade a top 15 talent too.
They'd probably just have to give up one of their not top of the line starting pitchers because that's what the Red Sox are looking for. Yeah.
Lottery ticket guy, assuming that they're willing to pay him. If they take the rest of the contract, I'm sure Boston would be fine with that.
And that's something like really quick. Thinking about it, you mentioned Adam Duvall, Alex Anthopoulos, the GM for the Atlanta Braves. I think he's the best general manager in Major League Baseball by a large margin. You look at the moves he's made in previous deadlines. And actually, ironically, he traded for Adam Duvall and acquired him from the Marlins just a couple seasons ago. And they go on, they win the World Series. You look at these teams that make the splash moves, and it's really only 2 or 3: the Dodgers, the Yankees, and the Mets, and the Padres. And last year the Padres with Juan Soto. And all of those teams, apart from the Dodgers in 2020, haven't done anything in the postseason. It's failed, but they can afford to fail, right? The Atlanta Braves make smart financial baseball decisions. They know how to run a farm system, and they know exactly what they need to fill the gaps in their roster. Instead of just going to the deadline and saying, hey, what is the biggest star that I can acquire? Which is what these other teams often do because they can and they have the money. I really think that teams like the Braves or even the Houston Astros, as much as I hate the Astros, and they're cheaters, and that's another time, but they look at their roster from top to bottom and say, all right, I need this for this inning. I need this bullpen piece. I need this platoon bat. And they make it work. And I think that is what the Marlins need to do. You mentioned Candelario. That is a perfect fit. Left-handed bat, plays third base, 1-year deal. It's picture perfect for the Marlins to make that low-cost trade. And so it's all about finding the right pieces for your lineup and how it's going to be moving forward.
No, very well said. So definitely excited to see, assuming the team stays alive and stays with it, see what kind of transactions that we get to talk about over the next few weeks. Hope we keep this going. Hope this is the first of many trade conversations that aren't about promising prospects that could be good in 2027.
I hope not.
But All right, so just a couple of quick things here as we come to a close. Always want to play a little bit of a game, and it's been a while since I've had a panel on at game time. So I think what I'll ask you guys to do is on our technical end, I guess, open up the private chat with there. We'll make a little buzzer system here, so you guys could buzz in with the first initial of your name, and in honor of this is actually what I wrote about for tomorrow for that Here's the Pitch newsletter. 7 years ago today, was a big day in Marlins history or baseball history for one player that used to play for the team, Ichiro Suzuki, and he kind of came to mind since the Marlins were playing the Mariners this week. Of course, Ichiro most famously associated with the franchise he was a 10-time All-Star with, coming into the league before spending two seasons with the Yankees and then three with the Marlins before going back to the Mariners for a retirement send-off. But so I wanted to ask some Ichiro trivia for this. And I'm just going to ask, so we'll do 5 Ichiro trivia questions. You buzz in, get the answer. We'll see who gets the most questions right. So good to go on that?
Let's do it.
Okay. So yeah, just first initial your name in the chat if you want to buzz in. Or you could very enthusiastically raise your hand, I guess. If that's easier too. Okay, so what happened on June 15th, 2016, Ichiro got career professional hit. If you count his Japanese league stats and his major league hits, he got career hit 4,257, making him the professional baseball hit king. Who did he pass? Jeremiah. Whose record did he?
I accidentally hit enter before I finished the question. So
right, Presley, go ahead.
I'm gonna assume it's Pete Rose. It's got to be Pete Rose, right?
It's Pete Rose. Pete Rose, professional hit king, but fans of every team but the Reds and the immediate Pete Rose family had a lot of fun with the fact that if you count those Japanese stats, that Ichiro had that many hits in his career. That they went 2 for 5 that game against the Padres that day. And question 2. So he recorded career hit 4,257 against the Padres that day off of a player that would become a future Marlin later that month. Off of the Padres closer at the time would go on to join the Marlins about 2 weeks later. Jeremiah, who was that pitcher?
Fernando Rodney.
Fernando Rodney. Love the cap. Those of you watching the video got that pose down exactly. Fernando Rodney was who we got the hit off of. Always found that hilarious. Unfortunately for the Marlins, it would not be the last time they'd see Fernando Rodney in 2016. Made many
one of many bad trades.
Yes,
that was such a bad trade.
At least Chris Paddock isn't that great anymore. But yes, it was a terrible trade. Okay, later that season, for a hit record that Major League Baseball actually recognized, Ichiro would also go on later that summer to get his 3,000th career hit. What ballpark did he get his 3,000th career hit in? Presley?
I believe it was Coors Field.
Coors Field. They got his hit in Coors Field on August 7th. There was a Sunday game against the Rockies. I know this because I bought tickets to the August 6th game. I bought those tickets in April. I was doing the math and figuring out when I thought he was going to get hit 3,000.
I watched him a week.
It's going to be that game.
I watched him a week earlier in Chicago.
Going to be there. I was also there for the Rose game, though. I was there when he he passed Pete Rose, and I was there for hit 2,999, but missed 3,000 by a day. All right, question 4. How many managers did Ichiro play for in Miami? Presley?
Was it 2?
It was not 2. Jeremiah?
Let's see. I think it was 3. Did he play for Redmond?
Played for Redmond. Was there all year. Was there for
Redmond.
And
then Dan Jennings had that weird
noted one-time high school
Jennings
baseball
and Mattingly.
coached one high school baseball game, and he was apparently fit for a managerial duty. Maybe he managed a whole season, but whatever the hell, that's terrible choice to make your GM the active manager of the team. Living out the fantasy of many a GM, I'm sure. But yeah, so played for Jennings and then played for Mattingly in 2016 and 2017. Okay, and then last on the list, I think this is a tiebreaker question, right? For true or false, Ichiro has and for his career, not counting, this isn't just his Marlins WAR, his career WAR as a major leaguer, true or false, it was the highest WAR for anyone to ever play a game for the Marlins. And his WAR was 60. I'll give you the WAR. Ichiro's career WAR is 60. Is that the best career WAR ever by a Marlins player? Presley.
False.
False. Okay. Do you know who did better?
It's got to be Miguel.
I was gonna.
Well, the answer is false.
Not Miggy. I'm gonna guess Pudge, but I'm not sure.
Yes, Miggy is better. There's a couple who are better than actually, but yeah, false was the right answer. I just stopped the research once I found one that was better. Sheffield was better by 0.5. Wow. But yeah, both Pudge and Miggy are ahead as well. And I would assume that is the full list. I'd be surprised if there's a fourth, but I guess we know. Because there could be.
Yeah, I couldn't think of anybody else besides Pudge and Miggy. Sheffield's surprising though.
I bet Stanton's a lot closer than you'd think.
Let's see. 45. He's still 15 off. But
he's not as high as I thought he would be.
The strikes out a lot, missed a lot of time. You got to be on the field to get that WAR. Okay, and so closing off with a little Marlins top 30 on here. So last week I revealed AJ Burnett is coming in as number 23 on the list, and for this week, for next name of the list, just ahead of him. And I mentioned at the time that I was maybe somewhat controversially dinging AJ Burnett for not being healthy for all of 2003. In this, complex formula, it's analytics on full display that I have coming up with this list. Part of what I award points for is winning a World Series, and I'm not really giving AJ credit for it. He got a ring, but I don't think he was really there long enough to get the extra points for that in my column. The next man on this list was not as effective pitcher and not as long as a tenured pitcher for the Marlins, but Brad Penny, number 22. I think Burnett more talented, but Penny had healthy that whole 2003 season, got 2 wins in the World Series, so definitely gets credit for being part of that World Championship team. And based on that, I have him just ahead of Burnett. He is 4th all time in wins for the Marlins at 50. Only 3 other Marlins pitchers have run that many games for the organization, and no one's in danger of really catching him, this season in that regard. And so, I think 2001 was his best year. 4.5 seasons here in a Marlins uniform. His best years came with the Dodgers, I believe, a couple of years after the trade, but still feel comfortable slotting him here at number 22 on the list all time for Marlins. You guys, any think that's about right? Spreads too high, too low, or any particular thoughts on Brad Penny?
Not a name I think of very often. So I
mean, at the end of the day, he goes in for your organization and helps you win a World Series. Like you said, he won 2 games in the series. I mean, that's something that he's always going to remember for the rest of his life, and that Marlins fans should always remember. Anytime you win a championship, that's such a huge deal for a player's career. Wasn't an all-star in Miami. I think his 2 all-star appearances were actually with the Dodgers a few years later. And then he came back and finished out his career in Florida. The pride of Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. Fun trivia fact for you all out there: Archie Bradley is actually also from Broken Arrow. So two big Marlins pitchers. They're both big guys. But
JT Ramirez right outside of there too.
Yeah. Marlins love Oklahoma apparently. So, helps them win a World Series, got the chip, and he's always going to be remembered for that.
All right, good stuff, guys. Well, it's way into the morning and way later than we usually record, so I think we'll leave it there. We promoted our stuff mid-show, so we'll just hope the wins keep coming this weekend against the Nationals and on into our series against the Blue Jays. So for Jeremiah, Presley, and myself, this was Marlins After Dark, and we'll catch you next week. Go Fish.
Go Fish.